I'm Dan Sullivan. I'm one of the programmers here at Film at Lincoln Center and a member of the selection committee for the belated 2020 edition of New Directors, New Films, our annual co-presentation with the Museum of Modern Art. Very happy to be here with you all. And I'm even happier to be joined this morning by the director of Red Moon Tide, Lois Patiño. Hello, Lois.
Hi, hello.
So yeah, we're going to be discussing the film you all just watched, Red Moon Tide. And why don't I just get right into it? Lois, with the kind of with the sort of like primacy or centrality of landscape in all of your work to date. Although here, there are important differences, of course. I thought it might make sense to just begin our discussion, frame it physically or geographically by talking about the significance of where you were filming, the Galician coast, because you're returning to this location following your previous feature, Costa da Mort, and so yeah, could you just tell us a bit about this place and about filming there?
Yes. Well, thank you for watching the film, and of course for the invitation. It's a great honor for me and for the crew to be part of this festival. And yes, this film is like is continuing the exploration of this landscape called Costa da Morte, Galicia. That is where I'm from. That is a place in the northwest of Spain. And in my first film, Costa da Morte, I was exploring this identity of landscape and this connection or relationship between men and landscape. And at the beginning of that film, there was a quote that says something like, "In an entering of landscape in men and men in landscape, the idea of the idea of Galicia was born." No. So it was this double movement, no, of the landscape going into the people and the people going into the landscape. Not going only physically into the landscape, but also with the projection of myths and legends. And also there was another definition of landscape that was very interesting for me, that says landscape is layers of time condensed in one image. No, so this idea of different civilizations going into the landscape and leaving strata in landscape was very, very interesting for this idea of the identity of a landscape. No, so after Coast of Death, I keep with the curiosity of going more deep into the imaginary world of Galicia. That, well, this place, as you saw in the film, is a place where the ocean has a big presence, and an ocean that was during many centuries was understood as an ocean with no limits, no, until America appeared in the imaginary of Europe. This ocean was, and this land was so as the end of the world, no. So I was thinking about this relationship between landscape and myth, no, and which myths can emerge from this landscape that is living next to an ocean that is a very dangerous one with a lot of shipwrecks and has this mystery of having no limits. No, so this film tried to go into these myths and work in this combination of landscape and myth.
Yeah, I'd read it in an interview you did, I think of Berlinale, where you were talking about the importance of sort of like of mythology, or perhaps like meta mythology almost, in this film. Could you tell us a bit about? I mean, could you tell us a bit about how you sort of conceptualized what this film is exploring in terms of like mythology and myth making, particularly when, as you noted, there are some significant developments in how you seem to conceive of the relationship between the landscape and the people who inhabit the landscape. So yeah, how did that proceed?
See, well, there are, in terms of the legends, of course, there are many similarities that appears in different part of the world. No, I like a lot the work of Mircea Eliade, the anthropologist of religions and myths. No, and well. Of course, as death is one of the biggest mysteries, a lot of legends goes to cover. No, because I understand the myths as or the legend as a story that goes where the knowledge cannot appear, cannot get there. We imagine this story to try to cover this void space, no? And so as myth, as death is one of the biggest mysteries, there are many around them, no? But of course, it's not the same way this story or this myth can appear in a place like this one, with the sea, dangerous sea, than in a desert, or in the snow in Siberia. So there are different ways there. And in terms of the narrative of the film, also I wanted to work around this undefined narrative that is a legend, no? Because the legend has 2 or 3 elements that keep stay, but then it changed a lot, no? For example, our film, Red Moon Tide, it follows the story of the Santa Compañía, that is a procession of phantoms, that is one of the biggest beings of the Galician imaginary identity, no? The Santa Compañía, no? And the Santa Compañía talks about these people that after dying, they keep in the landscape, no? Like in between the reality and the after death. So they keep in the limbo, and they need to some help to go to the after death, no? But this story, it changed a lot if you hear it from people from the north of Galicia or from the south, or so it changed a lot, no? So in the film, with these voices, with this voiceover speaking, like sometimes contradictory, no? Some says that the monster is the moon, the monster is the sea, the monster is the Rubio, the mother of Rubio. So I wanted to get this undefined form, undefined shape that the legend has. No?
Yeah, and I would I would certainly like to get into the interplay of what we see and what we hear in the film in a moment. But first, you brought up the kind of ghost or ghostly or spectral motif in the film, and there's also there's like this almost like the almost Shakespearean figure of the 3 of the witches, who are sort of reminiscent perhaps of like the weird sisters from Macbeth, let's say. I'm curious about how I'm wondering how the sort of like when these elements kind of enter into the film for you, because I'd read that like you that you just learned of the story, the real life story of this guy Rubio, like right before you started shooting, considering the kind of structuring effect that has on the whole film. So I'm just wondering how that, yeah, how did that proceed? How did like the development of the kind of mythological narrative proceed, and how did you sort of like move the ghosts and the witches and so on into that?
Yeah, yeah. In general, in my work, well, I used to start. The theme usually is this relationship between man and landscape, and the identity of landscape in relationship with history and myths. But after that, I used to start from an exploration of the a cinema language. No, here it was I was trying to propose a different time experience to the viewer. No, this one was the seed of the project. The other was the exploration of this imaginary identity of Galician culture, and the story I was leaving it to the flow. No, let's say I knew that the structure was going to be like I saw the town with people paralyzed, then the witches appear, they start to investigate what's going on, and then they will do a spell, and everything will turn red, to try to, well, to make an estrangement from reality, you know, and to see, using the color to see reality from with a filter, no, and see the other side of the reality. And during this process, that took the film took a lot of time, like 5 years, 6 years, and very like two weeks before we start the shooting, I discovered this story of Rubio, no, and one of the crew members told me about him, and he touched so well all the elements that we wanted to explore in the film, like the mourning process, the presence of death and the sea with all this evocation and symbolic power, and also the idea of the shipwrecks and the corpses in the sea, that I thought it was perfect for the film. No? So I looked for him, for Rubio. He accepted to play himself in the film, and it was very important for us to make the story like more cohesive, no? And also, as the film is a mix of many things, the film wants to be a documentary in a level, no? The people paralyzed in the that we see is the people of the town, so it's a documentary way there. Having the Rubio inside and his story, and as a starting point to make there a tale after, it was very important for us. No?
Yeah. And yeah, so like in addition to everything else, I believe you're also your own cinematographer, correct?
Yes.
And yeah, and so yeah, this is the first film I think you've completed in like Night Without Distance was in 2015, I believe. Yeah. So I'm wondering, and that was a shorter work. I'm wondering sort of about your process of readjustment to the sort of the larger canvas, particularly at the level of like how you sort of reconfigure or perhaps adjust your the visual ideas that you want to bring into the work when it's going to be on screen for a much longer time. So perhaps some of the rhythms are different, some of the dynamics. Could you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, as I work in contemporary art and in cinema with one feet in each place, I I think a lot about this. No, not only the length of the work, but also how the viewer is going to experience it. No, and in the gallery space, I work also with a video installation, and so the viewer is a body that is walking and is you don't control the time of the attention of their view, and they enter in the galleries as an actor themselves. No, and in cinema, we are in the chair, and somehow the darkness appear, and somehow we disappear in the screen. No, so and we can control the duration of the view, and it's so it's a very different experience. Even this film, no, if this film I make a video installation with the different words, no, like the water of the waterfall, not the waterfall, I forgot the name, but it will be a different experience, no? But in terms of the length, doing a feature film or a short film, for me the main idea, the main difference is the narrative, no? That you need in the way I do my work, no? Because usually it's a conceptual idea in terms of language, then aesthetic experience, always looking for a meditative and intimate relationship between the viewer and the image. But the narrative is the way that you have to try to keep the attention of the viewer. And well, in Lua Vermella you see it, no? It's a narrative also that doesn't work like from the beginning to the end, like very fast. No, you get lost. It's very fragmented, but you need in a feature film. I think you need this story.
And I think perhaps some of that fragmentation that you're referring to is produced by, as we were saying earlier, the kind of the relationship or the kind of interplay between the images and the film's sound design, particularly with the actors, and it also occurs to me that it's almost like a triangular relation, because it also has to do with the camera's placement in relation to the actors, since it's often, although there are probably more close-ups or closer shots in this film than in Night Without Distance or Coast of Death, I think. Yeah, I'm just wondering. I was hoping you could talk a little bit about the sound design in the film and its interaction with the imagery and with the performances, which I want to get into in a second too. So
yes. The sound design has like different levels, and also like the voices are of course part of this sound design. Also in the way we do the performance, no, like very very low. And well, we with the sound designer Juan Carlos Blancas, we wanted, as we do with the image itself, is to try to start from the reality and go deeper and deeper into this imaginary terror film, no? So starting from the reality and go beyond the reality, no, and to the myth. And so in the sound, we wanted some parts to be like very, very naturalistic, very light, to hear the wind, the sea, and little by little, at some points, go to more dense, with more layers of sound, more dark, and also using sometimes this electronic atmospheric music, and sometimes this piano, like is like a composer, contemporary musician, composer from Spain, Alberto Posadas. And then we have this level of the voices, no? And for the voices we try different things, because of course the voices are included in post-production and also written in post-production. I did the shooting without any dialogue written. It was just the idea. I had the structure of the screenplay and the idea of writing this monologue, inner monologue in post-production. No? So I left the, it's a strange thing not to write the screenplay at the end, but it was the what we did here. But also at the beginning, we tried to, I recorded many interviews to see how alive were these myths and faiths in these witches or these rituals, or how many people saw phantoms in this hometown. That surprisingly for me it was more than 10 people. That we made like 60 interviews, and around 10 people saw phantoms, no, like this procession of phantoms, and also their mother or something like that. But and I wanted to use these interviews, but they were the voices had so much energy that I couldn't use them. Even if I was saying them to speak slowly, they were, as we wanted the film to be like in this limbo experience, this suspended time, we needed voices that were almost not here, no? Like they were in this level between being and not being, no? As a spectral voice at the end, no? So this was also an important part of the sound design, to use this very low voice.
Yeah, and then I'm wondering about, I guess sort of in relation to that, one wonders, I guess, about the people, the people who we see on screen, considering the kind of the sort of dissociation or disagreement of sound and image at times, or of voice and body. Did the casting kind of proceed along the lines of these interviews that you were talking about, or sort of how do you how did you go about finding people to populate the landscape, and I'm curious about the way you work with them when you're sort of you're asking something very quite different of a performer than most sort of like narrative filmmakers, let's say. So yeah
here well, we did several castings, firstly for the image, for the bodies, and then after writing, during the editing process, after writing the screenplay, the dialogues, we did a casting of voices. And the first ones were, we went to we did the shooting in two different locations, one in the coast and the other inland, and we did castings there, no? And so we chose the people with the facial, the faces that we were interested most, and then for them it was not a hard experience, because with each people we just shoot one day, no? So it was, we chose one location, several actors or figurants, and then of course at the beginning they knew that they were going to be like statues in landscape, no? And for many of them it was interesting what they experienced, because of course we asked them to stay still a lot of time, no, in different places, each one, but a lot of time sometimes, no. And they were going into this spiritual, inner, introspective, meditative experience, and sometimes also connection with landscape. That was interesting for me, no. This film is the first time that I was doing short shots, no, like and that was because also in this exploration of time that I was trying to do, I wanted to make the difference between the external time that Gaston Bachelard called also the horizontal time, and the inner time, the vertical time, the time of consciousness. No, so this is why the acting of the people was paralyzed, but it's not a paralysis like artificial, like in the middle of a movement. No, they are paralyzed because they are out of the world, out of the time. They are introspective, meditative in their thoughts. No, so this is what I ask the performance, the actors to do. No, try to just relax and leave not moving the view, and leave their thoughts to fly.
Yeah, and I think we'll conclude with this question that I had about the kind of the documentary dimension of the film, or like the sort of documentary impulse in your work, and how that is kind of developed. I'm wondering if I'm wondering if you see the kind of some of the kind of like the documentary aspect of this film as residing in that kind of exploration of time that you're referring to. And then I'm wondering sort of how you see this impulse in your work. Where do you see it going from here? Because it's already changed like so much from Costa da Morte to now. So I'm just where do you see this going, I guess?
Yeah, I think the exploration of time is something that can be the biggest themes or the biggest aspects to explore in cinema, no? And I like a lot, of course, James Benin or Bela Tarr or Pedro Costa, exploration of time from immobility, or like resistance to speed. You know, this idea of slow cinema, but it's not slow in the terms of that you leave space to the viewer to complete the experience. No, so it's slow the image, but the thoughts are fast. No, it's like the opposite in the usual cinema, no, in a way. And I of course I want to keep working on this time experience, and I think now that I have 2 feature films but several short films already, I think I can assume that what I'm interested in is in this intimacy with the image, this meditative experience. And I think can be one of the elements that of my voice, no? But in the next projects, luckily I have two future films already with the money to do them. One is co-direction with the director, Argentinian director based in New York, Matias Piñeiro. We already did a short film to try to find our language in common. Know that as we are from 2 almost opposite places, it was interesting to do this short film that I hope you can see soon.
Well, weren't you guys like trading roles, right? He was doing the landscapes and you're doing the work of the actors.
Yeah, as we have this project of doing this film co-directed since a long time ago, we had the opportunity to practice each other in here. And yes, so we are preparing a film about the Tempest, Shakespeare The Tempest, taking place part in Galicia and part in the Azores Islands, with Portuguese and Galician and Argentinian production. And I think it will be interesting. It's based on the Ariel, the character that is the spirit of the nature in the island. So it's a play where theater and landscape mix, no, and so it's our language can find a nice place there, and then I also have a short film that is shot in Tokyo at night, and it will be a contemplative experience, very related with the fan paintings, but with just the spot of lights and the train lights crossing but a lot of void in the image, no? And then another future film that will take place in Laos, the first part, with teenagers in Buddhist temples, and then the second part in Zanzibar, in a little village place where there are algas. Do you understand algas? Algas farm, algae farm. I don't know the word in English. Sorry.
No,
but this
we can dub it in later.
Okay. And that's why I'm happy. We have a lot of projects and a lot of work to do, and hopefully you can see it soon.
Yeah, hey, I'll whatever I can get to look forward to, I'll take at this point. But yeah, why don't we I guess we should leave it there. But Lois, thank you for the film. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for your patience with rescheduling the festival and so on. And yeah, looking forward to the new work.
Yeah, thank you a lot. And it was I was worried it was not going to take place. No, so thank you a lot for all your effort. It's difficult times. It's times of resistance, and here we are.
Yeah. All right. Well, take care for now, I guess.
Thank you. Thank you.